This story is titled, My Wife Told Me a Coworker Was Pursuing Her. She didn't know I'd already read every message, hired a lawyer, and was 3 weeks ahead of her. All right, y'all, so this dude got blindsided at the dinner table, didn't flinch, didn't fold, and then played chess while his wife was still trying to figure out how the checkerboard works. If you've ever been the one holding the whole house together while someone else is quietly shopping for the exit, yeah, this one's gonna hit differently. But before we begin, a lot of you watching aren't subscribed. Hit subscribe, it really helps. Let's get into it. He starts off by saying,
Hi Reddit, context matters here because nothing blows up out of nowhere. Every marriage that falls apart has a fuse, and honestly that fuse usually burns for years before anybody smells smoke. I, 33 male, work as a diesel mechanic for a mid-size contractor outside Temple, Texas. Heavy equipment, the kind of machines that'll flatten a foundation if somebody sneezes at the controls. Been with them going on 9 years. Honest work, also brutal. My hands look like they belong to somebody 20 years older than me, and my lower back files a formal complaint every time I do anything after 3 p.m. Kayla and I met at a Tex-Mex place near the shop where she waited tables. Dated 2 years, got married, and for a while it was solid. Not a fairy tale by stirring us him. We fought about dishes and trash duty like everybody else. But the foundation felt real. Then Caleb showed up. Unplanned. She'd been on birth control the whole time, but biology doesn't read your 5-year plan. When she told me she was pregnant, I sat in my truck in the driveway for like 45 minutes just processing it. Then I walked inside and told her we'd figure it out. And I meant that. We decided to keep him, and that was my choice as much as hers. That kid became the center of my world from the second I heard his heartbeat on the monitor. But a baby rewrites all the math. Kayla quit waitressing. Daycare in Central Texas would have eaten her whole paycheck plus some of mine. So she became a full-time mom, and I became the full-time everything else. 60-hour weeks. Saturdays gone. We got a 3-bedroom on a half-acre outside Temple. Kayla's pick. More house than we needed, but when your pregnant wife talks about a real yard and a good school district, you don't argue, you just work more hours. Mortgage, insurance, truck payment, utilities, groceries, diapers, formula, co-pays. I was clearing maybe $400 of breathing room on a good month. Coming home smelling like crankcase oil to a wife who looked at me the way you look at a vending machine. Useful when needed, invisible otherwise. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was an income source with a pulse. When Kayla said she wanted to go back to work about 2 months ago, I thought we'd finally turned a corner. She got hired at a vet clinic in town. We found a neighbor's daughter to watch Caleb afternoons. The money pressure finally let up just enough that I could breathe without my chest hurting. I thought we were climbing out of the hole. Turns out Kayla was just scouting a new one. Tuesday night. Caleb was out cold. Kayla sat me down, folded her hands in her lap like she was rehearsing for a job interview she didn't want, and told me a man at her job had been pursuing her. That was her word. Not hitting on, not flirting, pursuing. Like she was a deer minding its own business, and this dude just showed up with a bow. Zero agency on her end. She was just standing there being pretty, and whoops, some guy caught feelings. I'm on the couch, still smelling like diesel and hydraulic fluid from 12 hours under a track loader, boots not even off yet, and I just listened. Kayla, the woman I married, mother of my son, now apparently the helpless target of some big romantic campaign by a vet tech named Dylan who'd been at the clinic about 8 weeks. She told me Dylan knew she was married, said he'd asked her to lunch alone a few times, and she turned him down. Then she dropped the line that was clearly supposed to make me feel like she was being brave, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted. She watched my face, not with guilt, with the look a mechanic gets watching a pressure gauge, waiting to see if it spikes. This wasn't a confession, it was a test run. I didn't yell, didn't slam anything. I asked one question. How tempted? She blinked. She'd geared up for anger, maybe tears, probably a fight she could use later as proof I was aggressive. A calm follow-up threw off her whole script. I didn't do anything, Nate. I'm telling you because I want to be honest. That's not what I asked. She looked away toward the dark kitchen window. Enough that it scared me. I nodded, stood up, walked to the kitchen, and just stared at the fridge magnets Caleb had stuck up crooked. A lopsided letter C and a peeling dinosaur sticker. The pauses in her speech had been too even, too placed. And the one detail she left out, what she actually said back to this guy when he started pushing, told me way more than anything she gave up. Later that night, house dead quiet, Caleb's sound machine humming through the wall. I picked up the iPad on the kitchen counter, the one we both used for Netflix, recipes, grocery lists. Still synced to her iMessages because she'd never logged out. Either she forgot or she didn't think I'd ever look. Both options told me I was furniture. I tapped the messages icon. Dylan's name was right there, third thread down, like it belonged. I opened it and my thumb just kept scrolling. And scrolling. First few messages looked almost harmless. Stuff about shift coverage, a question about a dog's medication. But then the tone shifted. A laughing emoji from her on something that wasn't funny. You're terrible, LOL, after he told her she was the best part of his shift. I gripped the edge of the counter, kept reading. His messages got bolder. Hers stopped pushing back. Then I hit the one that made my vision go narrow. If I wasn't married, I'd say yes so fast. Her words. Her fingers typed that. 3 days before her little confession speech. Below it, can't stop thinking about what you said at closing. His reply, a winking face, and same. She didn't confess because she was brave. She confessed because she was testing the water, seeing if I'd swallow a cleaned-up version so she could keep doing what she was already doing, now with the cover of having told me about it. I set the iPad down, took clear photos of every message thread, made sure timestamps showed. Then I went to sleep on the couch. Not because I was being dramatic, because I needed to think without the sound of her breathing 3 feet away. Hard to plan your next move lying next to the person you're planning against.
Pause, yo. The audacity of confessing to your husband while your iMessages are still synced to the family iPad. That's like robbing a bank and leaving your driver's license at the teller window. But here's what every guy needs to know. In most states, a shared household device with no password is legally fair game. You're not hacking anything. It's your iPad too. Screenshot everything with timestamps visible. Back it up somewhere she can't reach. And do not tell her you found it. The second you yell, slam something, or send an angry text, you hand her lawyer a weapon. Silence is your best opening move. Back to it.
Every cell in my body wanted to slam that iPad on the kitchen table and say, explain. But I've been around enough guys at the shop who blew up their own position by going nuclear without thinking. One buddy lost primary custody over 3 angry texts. 3. That's all it took for her lawyer to call him volatile and threatening. So I watched. And I kept track of everything. She started shifting her hours at the clinic. Nothing obvious, just a morning slot swapped here, an evening close picked up there. But there was a pattern. She was lining up her schedule with Dylan's. I confirmed it because the clinic had their weekly staff schedule on a whiteboard you could see through the front window. I drove by on my lunch one day, parked at a gas station across the street with a breakfast taco getting cold in my lap, and just looked. Her name and his, same time blocks, 3 out of 5 days. Next week, same thing. That's not a coincidence. Random charges at restaurants she never mentioned. Coming home from a crazy late shift, smelling like cologne I don't own. And out of nowhere, she started revising our marriage like she was editing a Wikipedia page. You were never really around, even before Caleb. I basically raised him alone while you were off doing your thing. Her thing being the job that paid for the house she picked, the car she drove, and the insurance covering Caleb's ear infections. I knew what this was. I'd read about it online one night when I couldn't sleep. The justification phase. If she could convince herself I was some neglectful, absent partner, then whatever she did with Dylan wasn't cheating. It was survival. The hardest part wasn't finding proof. It was sitting across from her at dinner while Caleb talked about dinosaurs. Watching her smile with the same face she'd always had. Knowing everything behind it was different. She wasn't being sweet because she loved me. She was keeping me calm while she figured out her exit. She didn't know I was quietly building mine. 3.5 weeks in, I was elbow deep in a Caterpillar 320's hydraulic system. Wait, actually it might have been Thursday, I remember, because the parts truck was late and that only happens Thursdays when my phone started buzzing in my coveralls. Pulled it out expecting the supply guy, Kayla's mom, Oklahoma number. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and answered, Hey Trudy, everything okay? No, Nate, everything is not okay. Her voice was shaking, not crying, furious. My daughter called me sobbing last night and told me what you've been putting her through. What I've been going through her phone like some jealous control freak, threatening divorce because she made a friend at work. A male friend, Nate, that's it. And now you're trying to make her quit the only job she's ever had that gave her any kind of independence. Trudy, that's not what... I'm not finished. She told me you've been controlling and hostile for weeks, that she's scared to be in her own house, scared of her own husband. Her voice cracked on that last word. I raised that girl to be strong, and if you can't handle your wife having a simple conversation with a male coworker, then maybe you're not man enough to be married. Man enough. That phrase hit like a pipe wrench to the sternum. 3 years wrecking my body to keep this family above water, and now I wasn't man enough. My hands were shaking. Not from sadness, from the kind of anger that starts in your chest and wants to come out your fists. I gripped the top of my truck bed until my knuckles went white. Counted to 10. Then again. Because the version of me that wanted to unload every screenshot right there in that parking lot, that version would have lost. Trudy, I respect you and I understand why you're upset based on what you've heard. But you're missing some pretty important stuff. When this is all done, I hope you'll ask Qley to give you the full version. I hung up before I said something I couldn't walk back. Within 48 hours, it hit her sister and their dad. Same script, same tears, same story where I'm the villain. Her sister texted about how disappointed she was in me. How she always knew something was off about me. Their dad left a voicemail saying he wanted to drive down from Oklahoma to have a conversation with me, which is a real specific kind of threat when a man says it in that tone. I didn't respond to any of it. Saved every message, every voicemail. Filed them all in the same folder on my phone. Same week. Second grenade. A piece of mail from a credit union I'd never heard of showed up in our mailbox, addressed to Qley. I brought it up while flipping quesadillas for Caleb, real casual. Kept my eyes on the skillet. Hey, what's this Heritage Federal thing? Got a piece of mail from them today. She didn't look up from her phone. Just a personal account. For budgeting. Budgeting what exactly? We have a joint account for everything. Just my own stuff, like personal expenses. It's not a big deal, Nate. That clipped tone people use when they want you to stop asking questions. The verbal equivalent of a door closing. I'm just asking because I didn't know about it. Because it's mine. You don't need to know about every single thing I do. I flipped the quesadilla and didn't push it. But that night, after she went to bed, I pulled up our joint account on my phone. Her last paycheck was about $300 short of what it should have been based on her hours and rate at the clinic. She'd split her direct deposit, funneling money into an account I couldn't see. She was building herself an escape fund, while I was paying every single bill in that house by myself. Next morning, I called a family attorney in Qley. A guy at my shop who went through a bad divorce gave me the name. Sat in the lawyer's office for 90 minutes. Printed screenshots, handwritten notes, bank statements with charges highlighted in yellow. He went through each one without blinking. Told me this playbook was way more common than most guys think. Said most men don't start keeping records until it's too late, and I was ahead of the game. His advice? Keep doing what I'm doing. Don't leave the house, don't raise my voice, don't send any text I wouldn't want a judge reading out loud, and when the time comes, we file first. Why does filing first matter? He leaned back. Whoever files first sets the pace, picks the court, sets the opening terms, controls the tone for everything after. Right now you're playing defense. When we file, you go on offense. I understood that the same way I understand torque specs. You don't wait for the machine to seize up. You pull it offline before the damage spreads.
Pause. What Qley ran has a name. Narrative poisoning. In surveys of divorce attorneys, over 60% say the most common tactic they see is one spouse rewriting the marriage story before the other even knows there's a problem. Revise the marriage. Poison the family. Open a hidden account. If your partner suddenly splits their direct deposit without telling you, that's not budgeting. That's exit planning. Pull your bank statements now. Check every deposit against their actual pay. Don't wait to be served. Be the one serving. Back to it.
Month 2. The whole thing started cracking. Friday night Facebook message from a woman named Tasha. She'd found Kayla's name in Dylan's emails, looked her up, found me tagged in an old family photo from Caleb's second birthday. Short message. I think we're in the same situation. Can I call you? Sent my number. Next morning, she called while Caleb sat at the kitchen table eating off-brand Fruity Pebbles, half watching cartoons, milk on his chin. Hi, this is Tasha. I'm sorry to bother you. You're not bothering me. Long pause. Then 6 words that changed everything. I'm Dylan's wife. We should talk. Dylan was married. The whole time. 2 people just out here lying to the people who trusted them most. But Tasha didn't trust me right away. First 10 minutes she was guarded, almost hostile. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Do you and Qley have some kind of arrangement? No, we don't. Because Dylan told me she was in an open marriage. That's how he justified it when I found the first message 2 weeks ago. He lied. I found out 8 weeks ago on our iPad. Qley never logged out of iMessage. Quiet. I could hear her deciding whether I was full of it. Then, okay, tell me what you have. I laid it out. The messages, the schedule matching, the restaurant charges. She started matching me beat for beat with what she'd found on their shared laptop. Dylan had left his browser logged into a personal email where he and Qley had moved their conversations after the iMessage stuff got too risky. He called her his work wife at home, Tasha said. Her voice had this thin, careful quality, like someone walking on ice they already know is cracked. Like it was a joke, I actually laughed the first time he said it, thought it was cute. Man, that makes me want to throw up now. I had to step out onto the back porch because Caleb started yelling about more cereal. Stood there in my socks on cold concrete, November air biting my ears. What I found on the laptop isn't the tame stuff, Tasha continued. Her voice had gone flat, controlled. This is planning. Times to meet after shifts. She sent one that said, "I wish we had more time, just us." And he replied with the name and address of a motel off I-35, said he'd looked into it just in case. My stomach dropped. What did she say back? One word. Maybe. Then a smiley face. I exhaled hard enough to fog the air. Through the sliding door I could see Caleb spooning cereal into his mouth, kicking his feet against the chair legs. No clue that his dad's whole world was rearranging on the other end of this phone call. The charges at Meridian, I said. On our bank statement. 2 visits, no mention of it. Tasha went quiet. I heard typing. I'm looking at Dylan's visa right now. Same restaurant. Same dates. Charges about 30 minutes apart on 2 different cards. They paid separate. Like that somehow makes it less of a date. She laughed, but there was nothing funny in it. They weren't even smart about it, just cocky enough to think nobody was checking the receipts. How are you this calm about it? I'm not calm, Nate. I'm past calm. I cried for 3 days straight, and then I stopped and started organizing. She was in the execution phase. That kind of calm that only shows up when somebody's already done their crying alone and decided what comes next. That night, after Caleb went to bed, I sat Kayla down at the kitchen table. Still hadn't showered. 12-hour day, hydraulic leak sprayed fluid all over my arms. My shirt had a rip at the shoulder from catching it on a bracket. Didn't matter. I pulled out the chair across from her and sat. We need to talk. She looked up from her phone. Something in my voice made her set its screen down on the table. Okay. I talked to Dylan's wife today. Her coffee mug stopped halfway to her mouth. What? Tasha. That's her name. She found me on Facebook through an old family photo, called me this morning. Why would you... She found messages on their home laptop, everything you two moved off iMessage to hide. She's got all of it. The personal email account. The conversations that got too risky for the regular threads. I kept my voice level. Almost conversational. I know about Meridian. I know about the motel he looked up on I-35. And I know what you said back. The color drained out of her face like somebody pulled a plug. I watched it happen in real time. This slow, sick realization that every wall she'd built around the story had just been knocked down from the outside by somebody she didn't even know existed. Then she swung hard into offense. You've been spying on me, going through my stuff. Now you're talking to strangers about our marriage? She called me. I didn't track anybody down. She found those messages on her own laptop. Same way I found yours on the iPad you never logged out of. Quiet. Then the tears. Right on cue. Nothing happened, Nate. I swear on Caleb's life, nothing physical ever happened. You were planning where to meet. Looking up motels. That's not nothing, Kayla. That's intent. Those messages don't exist. She's making stuff up to... I pulled out my phone. Opened the screenshots folder. Slid it across the table. These are from our iPad. Weeks ago. Same pattern. Same direction. Same woman typing, if I wasn't married, I'd say yes so fast. She stared at the screen. Didn't touch the phone. Almost 2 full minutes of nothing. Just the fridge humming and Caleb's sound machine bleeding through the hallway. Then, real quiet. I was lonely, Nate. You were gone all the time, and I was just here with a 4-year-old and nobody to talk to. I know that doesn't make it okay, but I was so lonely. Look, I believe her. Being home alone with a 4-year-old while your husband works 60 hours a week is isolating and hard and real. But here's where my sympathy hits a wall. She had 100 ways to tell me that. Could have said, I need more from you, any night of the week. Instead, she found a married dude at work and started planning motel meetups. Loneliness is an explanation. It's not a permission slip. Then her face changed. You set me up. I didn't dignify that. Stood up, put shoes on Caleb over his pajama feet, and took him to the park for 2 hours. He went down the slide 17 times and made me count everyone. When we got back, the bedroom door was locked and the iPad was gone from the counter. Didn't matter. Every screenshot was backed up in 3 places. Cloud storage, a thumb drive at work, and a folder on my laptop. She grabbed the hardware. I kept the receipts.
Pause. She swore on Caleb's life nothing physical happened, skipping right past weeks of emotional cheating, planning, and intent. That's not innocence. That's moving the goalpost to a line she technically hasn't crossed yet. And the loneliness thing? She's not wrong. Tons of marriages where one person works insane hours and the other stays home hit this exact wall. The difference is simple. Couples who survive it talk about it. They don't open a second front with a coworker named Dylan. If your partner says they're lonely, listen. If they skip telling you and go straight to texting someone else, that's a choice, not a symptom. Back to it.
10 days after the Tasha call. I got home from work and the house looked like a bomb went off. Suitcases by the front door. Caleb's overnight bag stuffed with clothes and his stuffed triceratops, the one with the chewed-off horn he won't sleep without. A box of kitchen stuff she apparently thought was hers sitting on the counter. And Kayla standing by the back door, keys already in hand, purse over her shoulder, wearing her driving shoes. I'm taking Caleb to stay with my parents in Tulsa for a while. We both need some space. I set my bag down slow. Didn't take my boots off. No, you're not. I don't need your permission to visit my family, Nate. You're not visiting, Kayla. You're leaving. And you're taking my son across a state line when we both know where this is heading. That's not a weekend at Grandma's. Man, you're so paranoid. You're so controlling you can't even let me take my own child to see his grandparents without... Where's Caleb right now? That stopped her. In his room, packing his backpack. He's excited to see Grandma. You told a 4-year-old he was going to Grandma's house before you told his father you were leaving the state. That landed. She shifted her weight, changed tactics. Softer voice now, like she was talking to something wounded and needed to keep it still. Nate, I'm not trying to fight. I just think he needs to be around people who actually show him love. Not just a dad who comes home exhausted and falls asleep on the couch every night without even... Stop. I held up one hand, pulled my phone out with the other, stepped into the hallway, called my attorney. She stood in the kitchen listening to my half of 60 seconds of conversation that rearranged everything. I walked back in and looked her dead in the eyes. Here's what's gonna happen. Taking a kid out of Texas without both parents signing off during an expected custody fight is parental interference. My attorney's got an emergency motion ready to file within the hour. Your call, Kayla. Kayla stared at me like I'd turned into somebody she'd never met. Her keys were still in her hand, but her arm had dropped to her side, voice cracking, more shock than sadness. When did you get a lawyer? Weeks ago. Because somebody had to put Caleb first while you were busy with Dylan. That landed exactly where I aimed it. She didn't go to Tulsa. The suitcases went back in the closet. But she wasn't done. 2 days later, Kayla went to the Bell County Courthouse and filed for an emergency protective order. The petition said I'd been systematically monitoring her communications, isolating her from friends and family, and creating a hostile, intimidating home environment. Every claim was either twisted past recognition or flat-out invented. I hadn't isolated anyone. Her family turned on me because she fed them a fake story. I hadn't made the house hostile. I'd been sleeping on the couch talking to her only about Caleb's schedule. The monitoring was her own iMessages on our shared iPad. 3 days later, windowless courtroom, floor wax and old coffee. I sat at a table with my attorney in clothes I'd driven straight from the shop in, diesel still under my nails, a grease smear on my collar I didn't notice until I was already sitting down. Kayla was across the aisle with her lawyer, not looking at me, looking at the judge. Her lawyer stood up and started reading from the petition like it was a script. Your Honor, the respondent has engaged in a systematic pattern of surveillance and emotional intimidation directed at my client over a period of several weeks. I sat there listening to a lawyer I'd never met in my life describe somebody I've never been. Controlling, intimidating, hostile, each word hit like a wrench dropped on concrete. Monitoring her private messages without consent, enlisting outside parties to surveil her activities and report back, and creating conditions within the family home designed to instill fear and suppress my client's autonomy. My attorney put a hand on my arm, not because I was moving, because he could see my jaw tightening. The judge held up her hand, looked at Kayla's attorney over her reading glasses with the kind of patience that's actually impatience. Counsel, do you have police reports supporting any of this? Not at this time, Your Honor, but the pattern of behavior... Medical records? Documentation of any physical altercation or threat? No, but the petitioner will testify that... Witnesses? Prior incidents? Anything at all from the past 5 years of this marriage that backs up these claims? Silence. Kayla's attorney opened a folder, closed it, and said nothing. Denied. One word. Loudest thing I'd ever heard in a quiet room. My attorney leaned over as we walked out. She just showed the court everything she had and there was nothing there. Judges remember that kind of thing. That denial is now part of the record. 2 days after the denial, I filed for divorce and asked for primary custody. My lawyer's filing had every screenshot with timestamps, every bank record showing the hidden account, every schedule overlap, every note from 2 months of documentation. He attached Tasha's signed agreement to give a sworn statement. He included the denied protective order as proof of bad faith legal games. Qley got served at work. At the front desk she sat at every day during business hours. I didn't plan that timing, but my attorney didn't go out of his way to avoid it either.
Pause. I need everybody to understand what just happened, because this is where guys panic and lose. A buddy of mine got hit with a protective order and panicked. Started texting his wife trying to explain himself. Violated the temporary order before it even reached a hearing. Lost 6 months of custody progress over 4 text messages. Emergency protective orders get filed in custody battles way more than people realize. The judge wants evidence. If the petition shows up empty, it doesn't just get denied, it gets remembered. So if you're in this, don't leave the house, don't raise your voice, don't give them one single incident to point at. Your calm is your armor. Back to it.
Divorce took 4 months. Texas makes you wait 60 days minimum. But between Qley fighting custody and her lawyer trying to get my evidence tossed on technicalities, it dragged into fall. None of it worked. Shared household device, no password, no expectation of privacy under Texas family law. Money hidden while I covered every bill and straight to credibility. Denied on both motions. The custody evaluation buried her. The evaluator found a pattern of deception she flagged in bold, including Qley telling the evaluator she'd never seriously thought about leaving the state with Caleb, directly contradicted by the suitcase photos I'd saved and a text to her mom saying, "If this all goes south, I'm bringing Caleb home and you can't stop me." That one paragraph killed any real shot she had. Judge gave me primary physical custody. Standard visitation for Qley. Every other weekend. 1 evening during the week. Child support figured from both incomes. She owed me a small monthly amount. I could tell that shocked her. She'd walked in assuming the mom always keeps the kids. Texas doesn't work like that when the dad has records, stability, and a lawyer who knows the statute cold. House went on the market. Split came to about 11 grand each after the mortgage. Enough for first and last on a clean 2-bedroom 15 minutes from my shop. Caleb got his own room. I let him pick the paint. He chose green. Bright, ugly, perfect green. Now the part I didn't plan but watched happen with something close to grim satisfaction. Tasha filed a formal complaint with the vet clinic's owners, using company time to chase a coworker, manipulating the schedule to line up shifts, using internal messaging for personal stuff during business hours. She had screenshots backing every single claim. The owners pulled security footage from the parking lot showing Dylan and Qley leaving together on 3 separate occasions during lunch breaks they were supposed to spend on site. After an internal review that took about a week, Dylan was fired. Walked out on a Tuesday afternoon with a cardboard box and whatever was left of his reputation. Reception watched him go. Nobody said goodbye. Last I heard from Tasha, he'd applied to 3 other clinics in the area and couldn't get past the reference check. Turns out a tight vet community in Central Texas has a long memory and zero tolerance for the guy who got walked out for chasing a married coworker on the clock. Word travels fast when your industry runs on trust and you just proved you don't have any. Qley wasn't fired, but she quit within the week. Tough to answer phones and smile at clients when everyone you work with knows the full, unedited version of what you did, and the guy you did it with just got escorted out the front door carrying his stuff in a box. She got a job at a call center on the south side of Temple. Night shifts, mostly. Tasha's divorce went through quicker. No kids, cleaner split. She sent me a message. "Hope your little guy is doing good." I told her Caleb was doing great, because he really was. Kayla's in a 1-bedroom on the south end of town now. She gets Caleb on her weekends and brings him back on time, which I'll give her credit for. She doesn't try the geographic games or the story games anymore. I think the denied protective order, losing custody, and a judge who didn't buy her act finally taught her where the lines are. Her family came around, not to my side exactly, but to reality. Her mom called 3 months after everything was finalized. Didn't straight up apologize. I don't think she had it in her to say the words, but she said something that stuck. I think I was only hearing one side for a long time, and I should have asked more questions before I called you that day. I told her I got it, and I really did. People believe whoever tells them first, especially when that person's crying. That's not a character flaw, that's just how people work. Her dad never called, but the threats stopped. I'll take it. Last real conversation with Qley. 5 months after the papers were signed. Routine Saturday pickup at the gas station lot off the highway between our apartments. Late afternoon, sun sitting low. Some guy pressure washing the tire shop next door doing a terrible job, just moving the dirt around in circles. Kayla pulled up. Caleb jumped out and sprinted to my truck the way he always does. Full speed, arms out, no hesitation, sneakers slapping the pavement. I got him buckled in. Kayla walked over to my window. Slow. Like she wasn't sure she was allowed. She looked tired. Not the performed, played-up tired she used to pull for sympathy. Just real, ordinary, worn-out tired. Can we talk for a second? About what? About us. If there's anything still worth saving. I looked at her for a long time. No anger, no satisfaction, just clarity. Behind me, Caleb was humming some song to his Triceratops, telling it they were going home. Kayla, you told your family I was abusive. You tried to take my kid to Oklahoma without telling me. You filed a fake protective order in a courtroom. You were looking up motels with a married man while I was under a bulldozer trying to keep the lights on in a house you picked out. There's nothing left to save. You made sure of that. She opened her mouth, closed it, nodded once. Walked back to her car. I drove home with Caleb singing. Couldn't tell you what song, every note was wrong and he didn't care one bit. Made him mac and cheese with the dinosaur noodles because apparently regular elbows are an unacceptable life choice. He fell asleep on the couch with his head on my arm, breathing slow and easy. Caleb's doing great. He starts pre-K in the fall. His favorite color is green, which you probably figured. He's got no idea what happened between his parents, and if I do my job right, he never will. He'll just know his dad chose him. Every time. From day one.
Man, that ending. Caleb didn't need a speech about what it means to be a man. He just needed the green room and his dad on the couch. Nate didn't beg, didn't blow up, didn't give her a single thing she could use against him. He just kept records, got a lawyer, and let her destroy her own case one bad decision at a time. That's not revenge. That's a man choosing himself and his kid when nobody else was gonna.